the jacket that carried his father's name. "I said, take it off right now." Bryce Telford's voice cut through the morning air like a blade just seconds before he shoved Colton Blake to the ground. The boy's body hit the concrete hard, the cold scraping his palms bloody. But what mattered wasn't the fall, it was what they tried to rip from him, his father's old army jacket. The one thing they couldn't understand, and the one thing Colton would never give up. Have you ever seen a child humiliated not because of what he did, but because of who his father was, because of the weight of a name stitched into fabric? If this happened to your grandson, what would you do? Comment the word honor if you believe no one should ever be punished for carrying the memory of a fallen veteran. The story is real. And it's just beginning. It was Thursday. Frost clung to the windows of Macmillan High School in Westbridge, Pennsylvania. The kind of day where the flagpole rattled in the wind and the hallway lockers echoed like tin drums. Colton Blake, 15, skinny, quiet, was crossing the courtyard alone, just like every other morning. He wore a jacket that swallowed him. Olive green. Frayed cuffs. Zipper long broken. The kind of jacket only a soldier would own, only a father would pass down. A relic of something sacred. That jacket had once belonged to Captain Arthur Blake, a decorated army officer who died in Fallujah when Colton was just 4. He never came back. No funeral with bugles, no folded flag at the cemetery, just a letter that got lost in the mail, and the jacket which still smelled faintly of sand, sweat, and Old Spice. Bryce Telford saw it first, son of State Senator Gerald Telford, captain of the lacrosse team. Smile like toothpaste ads, eyes like frostbite. He nudged his friends, and they flanked Colton with predatory ease. "You still pretending to be a hero, Blake?" Bryce sneered. "That jacket's a disgrace. Your dad's not even on any memorial wall." Colton kept walking, head down, shoulders tight. One hand clutched the left patch where the fabric read CPT. Blake?" "Take it off," Bryce said again. "Louder now. You think wearing that makes you special?" Then came the shove. Not playful, not accidental. Bryce drove his palm into Colton's chest. The boy fell back hard, knees scraping, books flying. Laughter followed. One of the students pulled out a phone. World War Z. "Junior reporting for duty," someone joked. No teacher stepped in. Not Coach Wilmer standing by the gym doors with a whistle in his mouth. Not the assistant principal glancing out her window. Just silence. Colton didn't speak. He never did when they mocked him. He gathered his books slowly, breathing through clenched teeth. Blood ran down his wrist. He wiped it on his jeans. Then he stood slowly, shrugged the jacket back over his shoulders, and walked away. Side room 203 Ms. Sarah Mendel watched it happen through the window. She wasn't just an English teacher. She was the daughter of a Navy corpsman. She recognized military stitching when she saw it. She also recognized cowardice in the boys and in the adults who did nothing. Colton entered her class late. He didn't make excuses, just sat in the back corner by the radiator and stared at the snow gathering outside. Sarah didn't call on him. She watched instead as he slowly pulled something from his wallet, a photo. It was old edges curled. A man in fatigues standing in sand rifle across his chest, smile quiet but fierce. His father. During the break, Sarah approached gently. "That's your dad?" she asked. Colton nodded once. "He died before I knew him. But this jacket, it still smells like him. It's all I've got." Sarah blinked hard. She wanted to say something, anything, but words felt too small. She just nodded, then walked back to her desk. When Colton wasn't looking, she Googled the name Captain Arthur Blake. Nothing came up. Not in obituaries, not on military databases, just blank. By lunch, the video had spread. Bryce posted it on Snap Class and labeled it Wannabe Soldier Gets Wrecked. Over 800 views in 1 hour. The principal, Mr. Danny Morrow, summoned Colton to his office. The room was cold, sterile, overly tidy. Diplomas lined the back wall, framed next to a portrait of Senator Telford shaking hands with the mayor. Colton Morrow began, "We have rules here. Bryce says you provoked him. The video doesn't show that, but you were wearing military attire without permission. Some of our parents found it disruptive." Colton said nothing. "You'll need to sign this," the principal said, sliding a form across the desk. "An acknowledgement that you caused an incident and will refrain from wearing military identifying clothing moving forward. This isn't about your father, it's about maintaining unity." Colton stared at the paper. His hand didn't move. "This is about school image," Morrow pressed. "Letting one student wear a military jacket could upset the children of others who served and came home." Colton looked up. Just once, eyes steady, voice barely a whisper. "My dad didn't come home." And then he stood. He didn't sign. He walked out of the office. Sarah Mendel was waiting just outside, her expression unreadable. "What happened?" she asked. "They want me to apologize for remembering him." That night, Sarah sat at her dining table with 3 things: a cup of cold tea, her father's old deployment journal, and the photograph she had quietly snapped of Colton's wallet picture. She typed the name again, Arthur Blake. Added location, Fallujah, year 2006, one entry, archived in an internal memo from Ramadi. Captain Arthur Blake last seen providing cover fire during Operation Silver Lion. Reported KIA after shielding Colonel Leah Vaughan's team. Sarah stared at the screen. Colonel Leah Vaughan. She reached for her phone. Dialed. It rang twice. Then a woman answered. "This is Vaughan." "Colonel, I think I know the boy of the man who saved your life. What would you do if they told your grandson to apologize for his father's sacrifice? Comment the word honor if you believe that some jackets are more than fabric." The names that don't exist in the system. There's no record of Captain Arthur Blake in our files. Are you sure he existed? The clerk at the VA office said it without blinking. For Sarah Mendel, the words were like a slap. Just hours earlier, she had uncovered a field report from Ramadi naming Arthur Blake as the man who shielded a colonel during enemy fire. But now, under humming fluorescent lights, he was being erased. How many veterans disappear because of paperwork? If you've ever felt invisible despite your service comment, remember below. This story is for you. Sarah kept her voice steady. He died in Fallujah. He saved lives. One of them was Colonel Leah Vaughan. The clerk just shrugged. "If he's not in the system, I can't help you." Sarah left, hands shaking on the wheel as she drove back to Macmillan High. It wasn't just about Colton anymore. This was about truth. At school, the cold air inside felt sharper than the snow outside. Bryce Telford walked taller now, emboldened by a video of Colton's humiliation that had passed 4,000 views. Teachers said nothing. Students whispered. No one stood up. Colton, silent as always, wore the jacket again. Shoulders squared, hands still brushing the CPT. A Blake patch like it was stitched to his skin. At his locker he found a note, "You're not your father." He folded it calmly and moved on. But in room 203, Sarah Mendel was digging, cross-referencing records, searching old interviews, and then she found it. A clip from a veterans memorial site. A woman in full uniform standing beside a wooden flag case. Below her name, Colonel Leah Vaughan, RET Army Medical Corps. "I owe my life to Captain Arthur Blake. If I ever find his son, I'd like to tell him who his father really was." Sarah grabbed her phone. 3 rings. "Then this is Vaughan." "Colonel, I think I teach the boy you're looking for." A pause. "He's here." "Yes." And they're trying to make him apologize for wearing his father's jacket. Send me the school name, Leah said. And the form. I'll be there by morning. Back at school, Colton sat across from Principal Morrow, who pushed the discipline form toward him. This is about school image, Morrow said. Your attire is disruptive. Colton stared at the paper. My dad didn't come home. Senator Telford, standing beside the desk, added optics matter. Sign it or face suspension. Outside the door, Sarah stood frozen, powerless. 30 miles away, Leah Vaughan was already preparing. She called an old friend, Major Michael Hale. They met at a rest stop. No words, just a file, a nod, a quiet agreement that some debts never expire. Back in Morrow's office, Colton's pen hovered over the paper. He didn't sign. I'm not apologizing for my father. He stood and walked out. Sarah emailed the school board the video, the form, the interview. That afternoon, during fifth period, 2 black SUVs rolled into the staff parking lot. Military plates, engines humming low like restrained thunder. From the first stepped Leah Vaughan in full dress blues. From the second, Major Hale. They didn't walk. They marched. Students pressed against windows. Teachers stood still. Inside the front office, the secretary stammered, Can I help you? You already did, Leah replied, by staying silent. In the conference room, Bryce smirked. His father sipped coffee. Morrow tapped a pen. Then the door opened. Leah stepped inside. Her presence crushed the air. She looked at Colton, then at the men who had tried to shame him. No one told this boy what his father did, she said. So I'm here to do it now. Major Hale followed. He opened a slim black folder and placed a medal on the table. Bronze Star with Valor. Captain Blake earned this. He saved lives, including mine. The silence was suffocating. Colton's hands gripped the jacket tighter. He didn't cry, but his breath caught. Leah reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. A letter. Your father wrote this before his last deployment. Colton held it with both hands. Didn't open it, just held it. Senator Telford shifted. Let's consult with the superintendent before reacting emotionally. Leah cut him off. The truth doesn't need approval. Colton looked at them all, then said quietly, I won't sign anything, but thank you for saying his name. Outside the office, the hallway had gone silent. Through the glass, students watched. Teachers watched. Something had changed, and this time no one looked away. The jacket was no longer just fabric. It was a symbol. If you believe forgotten names deserve to be spoken, comment, remember and follow this story. Because silence is a wound, but truth is armor. Silence beneath the flag. Remove the jacket or leave the campus. That was the first thing Colton Blake heard that morning, delivered not as guidance, but as a final ultimatum by Principal Morrow. The hallway went silent as he walked forward, the olive green jacket brushing his sides like it had weight beyond fabric. He didn't flinch, didn't respond, just walked like his father would have. If you've ever been told to hide what you carry from someone, you lost. Comment, stand below. Because silence is never the answer. He turned the corner into the conference room. Bryce Telford sat smugly, his phone resting beside a bottled water. His father, Senator Telford, stood near the window. Morrow adjusted his tie. Sarah Mendel watched from outside, the glass heart pounding. Colton remained standing. We've given you every opportunity to comply, Morrow began. It's a jacket, Colton said. My father's. Bryce scoffed. The one who died with no record. Then the door opened. Colonel Leah Vaughan entered. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her presence shifted the entire room. Major Hale followed behind her, a black folder under his arm. Senator Telford's posture stiffened. Leah looked at Colton. then turned to the rest. No one told this boy who his father really was, so let me. She opened the folder and placed the bronze star on the table. Captain Arthur Blake. Fallujah, Operation Silver Lion. He gave his life covering our escape. Then she looked at Bryce. You posted a video for attention, but you mocked something you couldn't buy, legacy. Bryce looked down. Sarah stepped forward. Colonel Vaughan didn't come here for drama. She came to make sure someone's name doesn't vanish because the paperwork did. Major Hale added, this medal wasn't mailed home. It stayed in my kit, waiting for this moment. Colton said nothing. His hands gripped the jacket tighter. Then Leah pulled out an envelope. Your father wrote this the week he deployed. He asked me to deliver it if he didn't return. Colton took the letter, didn't open it, just held it like it was breath itself. Senator Telford spoke. This meeting was meant to discuss conduct. Leah replied sharply, conduct was the only thing your son failed to display. There was no comeback. Colton lifted his head. I'm not signing anything, but I'll say thank you for finally saying his name. As they left the room, the hallway outside had gone still. Through the glass walls, students and teachers watched. No mockery, no laughter, just a silence deeper than shame. Outside, snow had started falling. Colton stepped into the wind, opened the letter with shaking hands. His father's words flowed onto the page like they'd been waiting. Dear son, this jacket is yours because you'll need it more than I do. It carries who we are. If you ever feel alone in it, remember, you never are. Love, Dad. Colton folded the letter, looked up at the flag waving above the building. Not just cloth, not just thread, but everything his father stood for. If you believe truth outlives silence, comment, stand and stay with this story, because the jacket may be old, but what it carries is eternal. The truth that needs no medal. He didn't die for a medal. He died for the man I became. Colton's voice rang out across the gymnasium with a quiet strength no microphone could replicate. The school had tried to bury this moment behind closed doors, but after what happened in the principal's office, there was no hiding anymore. Truth had a way of demanding space. 3 hours had passed since Colonel Leah Vaughan placed the bronze star on the table and gave Colton his father's letter. But now it wasn't just administrators who knew the story, it was the entire student body, the faculty, the parents. News had traveled fast, and Principal Morrow had been forced reluctantly to announce a spontaneous school assembly trying to save face. But the moment Colton stepped on stage with that jacket, it was clear. This wasn't damage control. This was a reckoning. Some moments rewrite the room. This was one of them. If you've ever held back the truth because you thought no one would believe you, comment enough below. Because sometimes silence does more damage than lies, and this time it ends here. Colton didn't have a speech prepared. He didn't read from paper. He just stood there, the letter folded in his pocket, the jacket heavy on his shoulders, and he spoke. My name is Colton Blake. You all know me. Or you thought you did. I've been shoved in your hallways, mocked at your lunch tables, recorded on your phones, but I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I'm here because you tried to erase someone who gave his life for people he never met, my father. The gym was silent. He didn't get a memorial. He didn't get recognition. But he got me, and I carry him every day in this jacket. You told me to take it off. But this isn't fabric. It's memory. It's what he stood for, what I now stand for. Some students stared, faces flushed. Others looked down. Sarah Mendel stood near the bleachers holding back tears. Bryce was seated in the front row. He didn't look smug anymore. He looked hollow. Colton turned slightly, facing the teachers lined against the wall. And to those who watched it happen and said nothing, I want you to know I'm not angry. I'm just done apologizing for something that deserves honor. He stepped back from the mic. Didn't bow. didn't wait for applause. He walked down the steps slowly, and just as he reached the floor, Colonel Vaughan stepped forward and pinned something onto the jacket's collar. It wasn't the Bronze Star. It was a silver nameplate, one she had made the night before. It read, "Blake Arthur Legacy Carried Forward." And suddenly something unexpected happened. A teacher, Mr. Hanover, a former Marine, stood. Then a janitor, then two students in ROTC uniforms. They didn't say anything, they simply stood. Principal Morrow adjusted his tie. The room was shifting and he couldn't stop it. He stepped forward, trying to reassert control. "We appreciate Colton's words, but we must also consider procedures," and Major Hale cut him off with a tone colder than steel. "Your procedures almost buried a hero." The crowd murmured. Parents looked around, some with shame, some with awe. Then something else unexpected happened. A woman rose from the back row, elderly, hair tied in a tight bun. She walked slowly to the front. The crowd parted. Leah Vaughan's eyes widened. "Mrs. Karen Blake," she whispered. "Colton's grandmother." Karen took the mic with trembling hands. "I kept my son's letters. I kept his medals. But I didn't keep his story alive. I was scared they'd say he was just another number, that he died for nothing. But today, my grandson proved me wrong." She turned to Colton. "You gave your father back to this world." Colton hugged her tightly. The crowd erupted into standing applause, not loud, but long, lingering, like they were clapping for someone who had been gone too long. But not everyone was clapping. Bryce Telford remained seated, his arms crossed. His father's face was red tight with fury, as if the whole day was an inconvenience. During dismissal, word spread that Senator Telford had contacted the school board to demand the video be taken down and that disciplinary action be reconsidered against Colonel Vaughan for inappropriate interference. But it was too late. The clip had already gone viral. Veterans groups were reposting it. News outlets were requesting interviews. Colton's story was no longer just local. And then another unexpected twist. An email arrived at the school inbox from the Department of Defense. A previously sealed operation report was now declassified. Inside it, Captain Arthur Blake's full commendation, names of lives saved, tactical decisions praised. And one closing sentence from his commanding officer: "Blake's actions that day represent the highest ideals of service, sacrifice, and leadership. His legacy must never be forgotten." Sarah Mendel printed it and placed it on Principal Morrow's desk. He stared at it for a long time, then slowly opened his drawer and pulled out the signed suspension form. He ripped it in half. Colton watched from the hallway. His face was calm, not victorious, not smug, just whole. He turned, walked out into the cold air once more. The flag waved above the school like it had every day, but for the first time it felt like it belonged to him too. Back at home, he placed his father's letter in a frame, hung it beside the medal, not in a case, but out in the open, visible, true. And when his grandmother asked him what he wanted to do next, he said, "I want to speak for the ones who never got their name read out loud." If you believe legacy doesn't require medals, just truth, comment the word legacy and stay tuned for the final part of this story. Because this isn't just about a jacket, it's about a country remembering its own. A living symbol. Some jackets are more than fabric. They're memories stitched into courage. The words were printed on a banner stretched across the entrance of Macmillan High's auditorium just 1 week after the assembly. Below it, framed and lit by a single spotlight, hung Captain Arthur Blake's jacket, cleaned but left exactly as it was. The frayed cuffs, the faint sand-stained shoulder, the nameplate newly added by Colonel Vaughan still gleamed, but nothing about it felt ceremonial. It felt sacred. and in front of it stood Colton Blake, no longer just the quiet boy in the back row, no longer just the kid in a jacket. He was now something else entirely, a son who made the world remember. Have you ever carried the weight of someone else's silence until it nearly crushed you? If you have, comment the word carry below. Because this isn't just about honoring the dead, it's about lifting the living. The auditorium was full. Parents, students, veterans, local news crews, even the mayor. It wasn't a grand event, no orchestra, no flashing lights, just truth and the people finally ready to face it. Sarah Mendel took the podium first. We teach history in classrooms, she began, but we often forget that some of it walks among us, silently, every day. She turned to Colton, until someone like him reminds us what it means to stand for something. Then came the Legacy Assembly. Students were invited to share the names, photos, and stories of family members who served. One by one, they came forward, faces nervous but determined. A girl named Anna spoke of her grandfather who served in Korea but never spoke of it until his final days. A boy named Marcus showed a photo of his mother in full combat gear and whispered, "She saved my life before I even knew it." Each story cracked the silence a little more. And then Bryce Telford stood up. No one expected it. He walked to the front slowly, face pale, hands clenched at his sides. His father, seated in the back row, did not move, did not blink, did not nod. Bryce stood behind the microphone and stared at the crowd, at Colton. "I was wrong," he said. The room fell still. "I thought being strong meant being louder. I thought legacy was something you had to earn with medals and money. But I watched Colton get torn apart for wearing something I couldn't even understand. And the truth is, I was jealous. Not of his jacket, but of what it meant. Because my dad wears suits, but I don't know what he stands for." He paused, swallowed. "I mocked you, Colton, and I hurt you, and I hurt everyone who ever wore a uniform and got forgotten. I'm sorry." He stepped down, walked past his father, never looked back. For the first time, Senator Telford looked smaller than the podium behind him. Outside the auditorium, news vans waited. But the real story wasn't in the interviews, it was in the faces of the students who had started calling Colton by his name. Not Jacket Boy, not Soldier Kid, just Colton. That afternoon, the school installed a permanent display in the main hall titled "Voices We Nearly Forgot." It featured Captain Blake's medal, his letter, and a quote beneath it etched in brass. "He didn't die for recognition. He died so others could keep standing. And Colton, he kept standing." He started a club called the Legacy Circle with Sarah's help, a safe space for students with family in service, for kids who felt invisible, for stories that needed air to breathe. Weeks later, Colton was invited to speak at a regional VA event. He wore his father's jacket again, but this time he walked with confidence, with purpose. When he finished speaking, a man in the front row, an old veteran with a trembling hand, stood and saluted, then another and another, until the room was full of men and women rising not because he had asked them to, but because they saw in him something they once were, and something they feared the world had forgotten. But not anymore, not with Colton. Back in Westbridge, Senator Telford lost his re-election bid. A quiet but powerful wave of community voices spoke out not because of party lines, but because of character. He never apologized. He never acknowledged what his son had done or what he had allowed, and in that silence his legacy faded brick by brick. Colton never gloated. He never needed to. He spent his afternoons helping younger students with letters to deployed parents. He spoke at veteran homes. He wrote essays not for grades, but for gravestones long unvisited. He didn't ask for thanks. He only asked one thing of everyone who heard his story: don't forget their names, even when the system does. And in a world moving too fast to look back, Colton Blake became something no camera could fully capture. He became a living symbol, a boy who wore his father's jacket until the whole town remembered why it mattered. So, as this story comes to an end, ask yourself, whose jacket are you carrying? Whose story have you left untold? And more importantly, are you ready to remember them now? If you believe memory is a form of justice, comment the word remembered below. Because when we honor one quiet hero, we remind the world what it means to never forget.